Whoa! I'm not gonna pass out this time, hopefully.
Hopefully. So, hello
Welcome
everyone.
back.
Welcome back to talking about Abdul Nasser, debunking the myths around him, and hopefully we finish this time. And most likely you'll be watching this as a full-on long video, about
Yeah, I'll
four
be I'll be
hours.
editing the 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 fuck up, to put it lightly.
Um. Oh, should we have advertised it a little bit more?
I don't know. What's it? Considering that we're combining it and re-uploading it anyway, we've already had 2 points
Yeah.
of advertisement. We have a third point of advertisement. What we're
Yeah.
doing is we're getting hella saturation. That's what we're doing. Hella saturation.
I think it is what it is for this time. All right. So last time we left off, if I remember correctly, was switching from Abdel Nasser the leader to Abdel Nasser the freedom fighter by talking about the myth that he was the leader of the Feet. Now, uh, that was around the time Comrade Mike over here had to hit the sack.
Narcoleptic episode.
Yes, hit the sack in the not most prestigious way possible.
Well, at least
So,
the mic was muted at the time, so you didn't hear me sleeping.
I mean,
Although
I honestly thought you died.
we could have had like although that would have been like 3 hours of just SMR of me rolling around and making the noises of pain.
Some people in my Discord server thought you had a heart attack.
Not
But
yet.
yeah, thankfully. Anyway, back to what we were on about before. Abdel Nasser, leader of the Feet. So I want to go on it again with same details to hammer this down in your skulls. And because Comrade Desmond over here would be listening this time. And of course, giving his commentary, which is always appreciated. So,
Yeah, I'm more of a complimentary to this. Like for anyone watching these things, like the main person you want to be taking heed from is the Arab in the room, just to put it bluntly.
yes, BRB stands for Brother Revolutionary Brother. I haven't made the acronym good yet. Anyway, let's
We're,
let's
we're
see what we
figuring
have.
out a replacement.
We're figuring it out. Yes, we are figuring it out. So, um, a huge myth regarding Abdel Nasser is that he was the leader of the Feets. No matter what war he engaged in, he lost. Now, this idea is propagated a lot, and what I'm going to say right now, you probably have heard it before, but right now I'm focusing it more because we're taking it from the top. So now it's not in the last part; it's more like the first part in the smaller scale stream, so I can go into better details. The people who propagate this idea are Zionists and to an extent the Muslim Brotherhood. For example, the 50th anniversary of the An-Naksa, the setback, the War of 1967, the Six Days War. I'm calling them by their names, all possible names, so there won't be any differentiating. And from now on, when I'm talking about the Six Days War, I'll be saying An-Naksa or the setback because I want to use the Arab terms of it. Uh, getting the good terms in place is always important. So
Definitely.
on the 50th anniversary of An-Naksa, some Zionist Facebook groups that I will not be sharing the name for, so I don't promote them in any way, shape, or form. Posted one of them posts memes, the other one addresses the Arab population in Arabic, and different Facebook groups and social media groups tarnishing the reputation of Abdel Nasser. One of these groups posted a meme talking about Abdel Nasser being the leader of the Feats. Once this meme was posted, it didn't take time for Al Jazeera, which we all know is the Qatari state TV in a way, Qatari sponsored TV, um, uh, took a pre-recorded documentary, I believe, and they uploaded it talking about if Abdel Nasser was the leader of the Feat, and of course, they wouldn't have a favorable view of him. It depends on how the Qatari princes see him, and I don't think it was any good because after that was uploaded or aired, a Muslim Brotherhood news agency, a TV station that I will not be stating the name, so I don't be promoting them in any way, shape, or form, have took this documentary, have took this meme, have took these statements and parroted them again. And it so happens to be that the head of this TV station, that I also will not be stating the name of, so I don't state the name of the TV station, so I will not be promoting it. No, I should have worked on this logic a little bit. It's a lot of talking here. But yeah, this TV station, the owner prides himself on being, he is an Egyptian living in Qatar. Uh, he prides himself on being pro American. And when asked about would he rather be would he be pro Chinese or American occupation, he said American occupation all the way. Anyone with any brain cell or any, you know, this like one atom of honor would say I'm against all kinds of occupation, but this is the Muslim Brotherhood we're talking about. They have no
Well,
honor.
that's the thing. So you know what? Like, that's exactly the sort of same point that Lenin rose up on. That you've got to oppose all empire, and that is a very very important point that you see up in a lot of revolutionary situations, and then the situation of the revolution of Egypt is not one that can be ignored in that retrospect because they had to come to that same point. Like everyone's trying to debate between who's gonna fucking hold over the country when the only people who should hold over the country are the Arab people and the African people because it's an Arab African nation.
Of course. So, as I stated before, like in the last stream, which would be the first part of this long unified stream later on, I did state the credibility of the Muslim Brotherhood is, very, very low, considering everything they have done, everything they have said in their relations, both public and secret relations, with Zionists and imperialists alike. Uh, so, is this true? Was Abdel Nasser the leader of the Feats? So, of course, from the get-go, this is false. This is false, and I will tell you why. Um, but before I say so, I just need to say that not only Zionists and Muslim Brotherhood people say this. Unfortunately, some leftists outside of the Arab world and inside the Arab world, unfortunately, parrot these same sentiments, which I really find disheartening and disgusting, and I will talk about the logic towards the end. So, first of all, Abdel Nasser was a military officer. He had good pay. He had a lovely Austin car, that he had before the revolution I talked about last time, from what he had owned after his death. He had a car, he was married, he had children, he had a good pay, he had a prestigious position as an officer and a war hero of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, or as we call it, Al-Nakba, the catastrophe. Um, I've talked all about that before. So, why would he go embark on a revolution? I stated before, Abdel Nasser was the head of the 1952 July Revolution in Egypt, and Muhammad Naguib was nothing but a face for the revolution, so it can be taken seriously by the population. And he had no real power, no real power until 1954 when he became just a figurehead after losing the power struggle. And I've discussed this lengthily before. So Abdel Nasser was living good. Why would he go on a revolution? Why? And before he embarked on the revolution, he was listening to classical music before because he wanted it to be the last music he hears in case he fails and he get hanged or shot by a firing squad. A lot of things may go wrong in a revolution. But fortunately for history, the revolution did take place. One of the first revolutions in the Arab world. Um, and that was a victory. The victory of the revolution itself, because in the revolution, a lot of things can go wrong. The idea that it actually went right and the king was deposed and the republic was established, it's a victory. This is a victory for Gamal Abdul Nasser. All right. So we've already established that his career as the Arab icon started with a victory. Next up, you have kicking the British army out, 1954. He had finally reached a treaty with the British.
Obliterating us, you mean?
Well, that was before 1956, but in 1954, yeah, he kicked you out. He kicked you guys out. He finally reached an agreement with the British that all foreign troops would be out of Egypt. That's in 1954. After 1954, there was also the power struggle between him and Muhammad Naguib and his supporters from Muslim Brotherhood and from the Muslim Brotherhood of the Wafd Party to the rest of the former elements of the monarchy. And
Well, according
Abdel
to them,
Nasser-
him turning Hamad Naguib into a crazy cat lady.
yeah, eventually, that's the liberal line. So, Abdel Nasser won this power struggle, which safeguarded the Egyptian revolution from a counter revolution. Because, as I talked about, the analysis of the memoirs of Muhammad Naguib and how he had acted, and what he said and what he did, show him to be an aristocratic counter revolutionary that wanted to end the Egyptian revolution while it just started. Because I've already went through this enough. Let's continue. But the safeguarding the Egyptian
Well, I
revolution in
mean, before you move forward, though, because a lot of people will be Marxists, they'll get this, so I'm not going to go into drivel. But I say, kind of think of the type of Trotsky figures that you get, whether the type of people that are the aristocrats that don't want things to change because they're quite comfortable with how things are. Sorry, go on.
Yes, basically like that. He was quote unquote leading a revolution, and he didn't want to do any of the revolutionary stuff. But of course, we've already exposed him to be nothing but a face for the revolution, and everything he said should be taken with a grain of salt in every single memoir he wrote, in every edition of those memoirs, since there were multiple. Um, so, 1954, after the power struggle, Muhammad Naguib has also conspired with the Muslim Brotherhood to assassinate Abdel Nasser and remove the revolutionary system that is being created slowly in Egypt that would become the Nasser system, the Nasserist model. That failed. So this is another victory for the revolution and therefore a victory for Abdel Nasser. That's in 1954. 1955, breaking the arms embargo, breaking the arms, embargo there. Because the Arabs were not really allowed to get good weaponry, while the Israeli enemy was getting the highest technologies by the West. Abdel Nasser did ask for weapons from the United States. The United States has said no. So he said, screw it. I'm going to the USSR, and the USSR gladly gave him through Czechoslovakia, which would be known as the Czechoslovak Arms Deal, which was one of the first cracks, which was the first crack in the Iron Curtain imposed by the West on the socialist bloc in the Cold War. So all of you Marxist-Leninists out there who love the USSR, you can thank Abdel Nasser for opening the way for the USSR to get better relations in the Middle East and Africa, because he opened that door for them through that arms deal and through good relations with Egypt. So next time,
I'd also like to point out that the good relations with Egypt as well has a lot of credit that doesn't get given to the DPRK. The DPRK had one of the best relations with Egypt up until Nasser was deposed of, and then they the quickest force to turn around and turn against Sadat. The DPRK supported Libya against the Egypt in the Egypt-Libyan war.
Yes, the DPRK. Well, they had a good run under Kim Il Sung. They had a good run under him. But of course, that's a discussion for another time. Very lovely nation. It's unfortunate what's going on with it, how it had developed, and the sanctions imposed on it. A brotherly third world nation. Anyway,
Oh yeah, bro.
moving on. 1955, the arms deal. 1956, nationalization of the Suez Canal after the Western-backed international organizations have stopped funding development projects in Egypt, such as the High Dam, the Aswan Dam, As-Sadd Al-Ali, whatever you want to call it, one of the biggest development projects the biggest development project of the 20th century. So, according to the World Bank Organization in a paper published in 1976. That's them, that's the West talking, it's not me. So you have it from the horse's mouth. All right. 1956, nationalization of the Suez Canal, and then you have the tripartite aggression. The tripartite aggression, or as you guys call it, the Suez Crisis. Over here we call the tripartite aggression of Britain, France, and Israel over Egypt, which you might consider it a military defeat by some. However, it was an immense victory. It was an immense victory on large scale, political, even militarily, because
when you're under attack from another force, if that force fails to take you out, you have won, because that force has lost in its actions.
So, what were the... I'll go around it very quickly. Israel wanted to annex the Sinai Peninsula. Britain and France wanted to depose Abdul Nasser and take back the Suez Canal. And there were already contacts with the Muslim Brotherhood and Mohammed Naguib to help him take back power from Abdul Nasser and prepare for a peace deal with Israel. So that failed. That failed on every single level. That was a military victory and a political victory, not only for Abdel Nasser, not only for Egypt, not only for the Arab world, but for the entire third world, because it showed that you can stand up to colonial empires, fight a military battle, and come out on top. You
against two of the most powerful empires and their lackey of the region.
Yes, basically, two already established colonial empires with history of genocide, famines, deportations. Hold on a second.
Well, I mean, like Angloism and sort of the British Empire is sort of the core principle of what genocide has been wrapped around the world. Yeah.
Hold on. I'm having problems on my end. Okay, test 1 2 3.
Maybe.
Okay. Can you still hear me in the same quality as before?
Yeah.
Good. So as I was saying, it's two already established colonial empires, and one of the newly created settler colonial fascist states with a soon-to-be large history of genocide and oppression, even kidnapping, and
cultural fucking assimilation.
Cultural assimilation, cultural annihilation.
Let's mind you as well, they're not just being anti-Semitic against Arabs. Like, they're being anti-Semitic against the fucking oldest tribe of Judaism, the fucking tribe of Joseph. The one that's never left Palestine. Never left it. All these people that want to say the Arabs went and kicked all the fucking Jews out are full of shit. Full of it.
Yes, because as you can see, there's still Jews in Syria, and there's still Jews in Lebanon. My pen. All right.
Blaming the Arabs for fucking history that people don't fully understand because they've allowed Anglos to tell them what they fucking liked to perceive it as after we crusaded them in the fucking, well, there's several different points in history, but mainly the 15 sort of hundred era.
All right, so 1956, a failure for colonialism, a victory for the Third World, and for Egypt and for Abdel Nasser. So this is a victory, a grand victory. 1957, I believe, or 1950. I don't know exactly when the the words just bugs me.
Dates can be a bit of a problem.
Egyptianization of the economy. Yes, that. Nationalization of all foreign owned companies, returning the resources to Egypt. That was a victory. Establishing the socialist system in Egypt. 5 year plans, economic planning, reforms in agriculture and industry, on all these levels in society. This was a victory. 1958, a victory on a scale that has never been seen before. The unity between two Arab countries under Abdel Nasser, Egypt and Syria. The United Arab Republic was established. That was a victory, a grandiose victory at that.
Hell yeah.
And that was already has been in the roots since 1956. As not a lot of people know this, but during the tripartite aggression, there was a group of Syrian Navy officers getting training on the newest torpedo boats in Egypt. When the attack started, the Egyptians were an Egyptian task force of torpedo boats were sent to fight French battleships going to bomb Alexandria, Iskandaria. One of the Syrian officers insisted on joining. His name was Jules Yusuf Jamal. He was an Orthodox Christian from Al-Laziqiya province in northern Syria, and he saw it that if the French today bomb Alexandria, tomorrow they're bombing Laziqiya.
Exactly.
And so the legends around this man goes from he kamikazed the French battleship Jean Bart, sinking it, to other legends saying he actually gave it a critical hit before he was bombed by the Royal Air Force. However, what is known right now is that the Jean Bart did get in a mysterious accident around 1956, sailed for one more year, but sailed for more year before becoming um, a training ship, and then getting decommissioned forever in the 70s. So something must have happened to the Jean Bart, and Jules Yusuf Jamal was in the battle. So, maybe legends are true after all. But moving on, 1958, the United Arab Republic, a great victory for Arabism and Arab socialism, Arab nationalism, and for Abdel Nasser. Then we go onwards into the 1960s. Unfortunately, in 1961, Syria and Egypt broke up because of a series of problems. That did not deter other attempts at Arab unification, that this time with Iraq and Syria. Sometimes Kuwait, even the Kuwaiti people proposed that Kuwait joined a supposed union with these three countries. But unfortunately, history had another say. So this can be marked as as the first political defeat for Abdel Nasser. Up until 1961, it was victory after victory after victory. And I forgot to say, in 1958, the Iraqi revolution took place, and the Hashemite monarchy was deposed, establishing the Iraqi Republic. This was a victory for Abdel Nasser because it not only got him a new revolutionary body in the Arab world, but also it dissolved the Baghdad Pact, a military alliance set up by the British to counter the United Arab, to keep its influence in the region and to counter the United Arab Republic. Now, even though later on Abdel Nasser and Abdel Karim Qasim in the prime minister of Iraq did have their differences. That did not mean that Abdel Nasser did not support the revolution and did not coordinate with the revolutionaries in Iraq. Some people say that he did not support them from before the revolution, which might be understandable because Abdel Nasser did state in one of his speeches he's not one to make conspiracies and plan for coups, because if he was one to do that, all the Arab monarchies would be toppled in 2 months. So he'd be supportive of any revolution, but he will not help create it. He will support it to the fullest extreme, but he will not be the one starting it.
Well, that's right to self determination. Because if
That
he's
is
the one who
self-determination,
the
yes.
problem you got, so the problem you got is if you go to manufacture something, you won't get what you're looking for. This was the problem that come against Trotskyism again. Like there's so many of these mirror images coming. Like Abdel Nasser is like disproving fucking Trotskyism in the same way Lenin had to. So these people are trying to be like, oh yeah, we've got our revolution. We should now go and enforce it everywhere else. You will cause the Arab to fight Arab. That's all you'll get there. You won't get the extra struggle you're after. And a coup doesn't deal with the system. You need a revolution. You need to deal with you need to obliterate the forces at B. That's what Iraq done. And, because if you're just wiring up a coup, all you're doing is just switching between selfish bodies of hands, which certainly isn't the Arab way, and stepping it onto another piece of ground and telling the people there how to do what they're got to do. That also isn't the way of doing things. Just you got to support the movement as the people throw and flow. The people ain't gonna throw and flow in the right direction. That's fucking more for them. We stick together as brotherhood, but we don't go and change the world around people if they ain't at the position we're at. Because there's this issue with people when they're in a revolutionary position. Because I know I'm not wording this very well, but this will get it. Is that the people get too stuck up their own ass and they think that they know all the best for everyone. That fucking if they don't go and mollycoddle everyone else's struggle, it'll never happen. And that's what the problem we have in the first world. They think they can just go and engineer everyone else's struggles because they think they're smarter than everyone else.
This reminds me of a point. One of the leftist YouTubers, fellow traveler. I think you talked about him on your channel before. He did say, like, I did talk to him before, like months ago. Did have a little small discussion with him regarding this. I asked him, after your let's just say your supposed socialist revolution take place in the United States, what would be this new revolutionary policy towards the Middle East? And he answered, we will support socialist groups that we like against reactionary forces. I'm like, well, that's one way to start a series of civil wars and military unrest in the region that is already unstable with civil wars and military unrest.
I mean, I'm not
So
gonna support. I'm not gonna support fascism or cop out to imperialism, but I am gonna support the freedom of fucking people's right to self determination and what they fight for. I'm not just gonna go. Well, I know that this uniquely Arab socialist group pretty much shares the same views as me and all that, but there's like a communist group that has like not even a quarter of the representation that it has that is more preferable to my views, so I'm just going to support that. It's like, oh my god, don't be a fucking... I can't say retard, can I? But fucking... Don't be a dick. Like,
don't be a first worlder,
yeah,
disconnected
there we
from the
go.
reality of the global south. If you want us to be your comrades, don't treat us like that. Because unfortunately, I know some friends that has, started getting disillusioned with socialism and they would rather stick with nationalism because of such types of socialists.
Well, I mean, the first world communists make people think that socialism is devoid of nationalism when it's not. It's just that first world people don't understand what nation is, and that's because they've disconnected. They think nation is nation states. Nation state is a corruption of nation. Nation is tribe. That's what nation is. Nation is tribalism, and socialism requires a sense of tribalism, but it's different for the first world than it is for the third world because our tribalism is to deconstruct the pseudo nationalism that we have fucking created to embody whiteness and imperialism.
And
Whilst the
what's
third
funny
world
is
are
when
regaining their nationality, they're fighting for their freedom.
and what's funny is when people flip it around, like that one dentist on YouTube I don't
Uh,
know. Like, I'm not really that much into the.
I don't know all the internet names either, so
Yeah.
it's like you're telling your granddad about it.
So that one dentist, I think you guys had a problem with that YouTuber before. I don't know, but and I don't really care. But I think that person said that, according to Mao,
Oh no.
American patriotism is good somehow. Well, can we just move on? Since
Mao says some retarded things. You've just got to be careful with it.
no, like because Mao was like national liber and like national patriotism. You can't be a socialist without being. No, I think it was Connor Gillis or something. I don't know.
Oh no,
Uh,
I'm pretty sure B level did say that. I think Spaghetti is right on that one.
yeah, okay.
Probably both said
So
it though, because they are like broken fucking record players. I have a working record player and it repeats itself too, but nonetheless.
yeah, so moving on. I don't really want to get lost into that discussion. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to educate. I'm here to not educate, but to help people understand the realities of the third world. So here we are,
Oh, I thought I was
19.
paying for a full blown education course. You're ripping me off.
I ripped you off like the aristocrat I
You know,
sound like.
it's costing me £450 an hour. Like this isn't cheap stuff. Sorry, go on. I
All right, all right.
have time my humor.
The 1960s were also beautiful for revolution. Abdel Nasser supported the Algerian revolution that succeeded in,
Oh, I have
achieving.
to plug on that. Watch Battle of the Algiers. Absolutely beautiful film. Oh my god. It's in Arabic and it's in French. It has subtitles in English. Don't be fucking pussies. Watch the Battle of the Algiers. It is a mandatory piece of fucking video for anyone who's a Black Panther member back in the day. And it is a very important film to watch.
So yes,
Decolonialism. It's got decolonialism at the top of its voice. It's beautiful.
achieving Algerian independence and beginning the socialist experiment in Algeria. Algeria did go through economic planning, nationalization of oil. There
We
was
went
no
for a lot of shit
liberalization of the market
because the
before.
French fucked it up.
Before the 70s, everything was going all right for the Arab world. 1960s, supporting the Algerian revolution till independence, supporting the Yemeni revolution, which was one of its kind which was one of its kind in the Gulf, because it showed that these Gulf monarchies, these Gulf thrones built on oil, can be shook and can be overthrown. And the Yemeni Revolution was one of its kind, like the first of its kind. Right, this is a better state, first of its kind, because as you see, if the Egyptian army did not go in to support the Yemeni Revolution against the monarchy backed by Saudi Arabia and the West and the British military presence in the region back then, the Yemeni Revolution wouldn't have succeeded. And the Yemen war is shrouded with a lot of lies going on and about, and hopefully one day we can talk about that.
I would like to say about the region, though, just to put people into history. France has already basically been kicked out of the Middle East, like the actual Middle East. They're in Africa still, but they have lost shit tons of control over the Middle East. Britain still has a massive military presence there. They still have control of Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen. What's it? They are a massive
Kuwait,
ally to
Qatar,
Syria, to Israel. Sorry, Kuwait. Yes.
Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, and South Yemen didn't exist. There were British military protectorates.
Yes, because people think that just the World War II ended and then Britain and America changed hands. No, that would have happened if the USSR collapsed, but because it didn't, Britain and America were having a power struggle for a long time during the Cold War over who's going to have the most amount of territory, and Britain was holding on to the Middle East like a fucking child with candy that you're trying to take off it because it's just been a little shit. What's it? So the situation that the Arab world was in was one with a very, very paranoid imperialist power that was trying to keep a hold of its territories, and it was a great victory for not just Nasser but the Arab people that they were able to fight back against this. And this is why one thing that I'd like to say that is definitely a victory of Nasser is that he is an inspiration to this day Arab struggle, because of all the struggle that happened in the Middle East against British imperialism and the the mass support for decolonization of not just Africa, not just the Middle East, but the third world. I do believe he's had a power outage because that happens sometimes. He'll be back. Yeah, he'll be back in a second. He just messaged me. There we go. Did
Yeah,
the
sorry,
IDF kick you out again?
I misclicked. But can you please highlight Spicky V's comment about Lebanon?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, these people are stupid. You can now stop highlighting it. Just eat.
Don't spend too
Uh,
much time highlighting stupidity.
so yeah, as I was saying, the Yemen war, it has a lot of lies. It's shrouded by a lot of lies that one day we can expose. However, for now, I just want to say that the Yemeni revolution did succeed and it did achieve its goals, which is removing the monarchy. And that created a domino effect that one by one, Britain has started losing its stronghold over that area, over that corner of the world. You've got Kuwait, Bahrain, Al Kuwait, Al Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE, and South Yemen emerging from the British retreat from the region, caused by the domino effect of the success, started by the success of the Yemeni revolution in North Yemen,
Well, it's like
which
it's the way
resulted
that
in.
the contradictions of the oppression of the British as well. Like British Empire caused the Great Depression because of their contradictions, and everything echoed from there. And I would say that you can't disconnect any single one of these revolutions or any single one of these struggles from the initial struggles popping up in Egypt in 1925, because like all of this echoes from those areas. Because 1927 was when the British started to have the Great Depression. That was when it began. Um, and this echoed out all the way into the 70s. This is when the Commonwealth started to be properly formalized, and Britain's, it was 48 it really begun with India, but started to really process over time, and Britain was being pushed out. So all of these revolutions that were happening in the Arab world were echoing from the beginning of it that was happening, and it wasn't just in Egypt; it was all over the place. So as Britain got control of the Arab world, and same as France, they got control of a world that was already ready to revolt. That was how they got control of it in the first place, and it was the contradictions were rampant.
So yeah, also for these Marxist-Leninists out there, you know, not only in the third world but in the first world as well, in the global north, that do love the USSR. Just to let you know, Abdel Nasser, in one way or the other, led to the creation of the People's Republic of South Yemen, Democratic People's Republic of South Yemen, which was, the only Marxist-Leninist state in the Arab world, the only true, ML experiment in the Arab world, while others weren't really Marxist socialist experiments, but socialist experiments nonetheless.
Or you had ones that didn't succeed, people that were calling themselves fucking Marxists and instead were Saudi Arabian, British, American shills, fucking
Yeah,
agent
we have all of it. We've seen it all. Trust me.
agent provocateurs. Well,
Uh,
I mean, we saw that after the destruction of Yemen. When Yemen collapsed, and Saudi Arabia's like, ha ha ha, fucking
you're
what's it?
talking about today, of course. But just to be clear, South Yemen of yesteryear is not South Yemen of today. The
Yes,
South, the Southern movement, as they call themselves, I believe, of today, are Emirati puppets, and they are Zionist shills.
think about how much
Therefore,
how much shit they throw towards the north. But if you look at South Yemen back in the day, the whole point was to unite Yemen. The whole point was to be a part of the Arab movement as well, and to be involved. That's why they were at the table with people like Nasser. Nasser was giving respect to people that were a part of the wider struggle, He wasn't gonna fucking throw respect to someone that was gonna fucking betray the Arab people.
Well, the
So
situation in southern Yemen between the Marxist-Leninists and the Nasserists were a little bit peculiar, and it needs its own stream to
I say
explain.
that I would happily have that discussion with you because I'd like to learn about that because I don't know all the ins and outs on that one. So it'd be nice
There
to
was a
fucking.
little civil war, but no matter who controlled South Yemen, be it the Nasserists, be it the Marxist-Leninists, be it the Baathists that were there, it's better than foreign military power being there. It's better.
I'd say
No,
the thing I
self-determination. Yeah,
the well, this is the thing that I put on with the demarchists, and I explained to Marxists that don't want to get on with sort of like not. And I'm not on about the Americans. I'm on about actual patriotic socialists like the demarchists and all that, and other socialists. If they are seeking to build what we all want to build, which is socialism, what matters what color that they wear, so long as they are seeking to build what we seek to build on a scientific basis. That's just the way I look
exactly.
at it.
It's like what
And
I said in our Palestine stream. We don't have to care about the ideology as long as they're holding the rifle and pointing it at the enemy. Of course,
well, I mean,
the
it
rifle of freedom fighting, not other types of rifles.
well, it's not just the rifle as well. It's the way in which we then construct afterwards, like what we seek to build, because we seek to build. I guess it does still work that way because to like you could theoretically see that the construction of socialism itself is a rifle against the capitalist structure, a rifle against a private ownership of a worker's fucking existence and private ownership of the people's existence. I mean, you've even managed to fucking privatize fucking religion, so fucking, what the fuck?
Religion traitors. All right, so as I was saying, supporting the Yemeni revolution from its beginning till 1967, till it succeeded, led to this domino effect of the British leaving the region and weakening their allies' power over the region as well. But we reached 1967. So we reached 1967. In 1967, as we all know, the Six Days War happened. The Six Days War, or as we call it, the setback and Naksa. The Six Days War is, as I'm going to say right now, wasn't an Arab-Israeli war. It was a Western war on Gamal Abdul Nasser, and you might
Yeah.
just now raise your eyebrows, but trust me on that one. We're gonna have a stream talking about these wars, the 6 Days War, War of Attrition, 1973, the October War, Yom Kippur War. These are important wars that we need to discuss more in details, but I don't want to cover right now. Just know that there were actually American bombers flying from Libya to bomb Egypt, as well as French and South African pilots on the Israeli side. And there was a lot of Western support for Israel that it turned out. And okay, so just to put
One
into
thing as well before you move on, because you mentioned South Africa, and so if you ever see a war with America involved and South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, or anyone is involved, that is Britain getting involved without pissing off their own population. It was something they did a
oh,
lot
Britain
during the
did
Cold
get
War.
involved. Britain did get involved in
Oh,
that
did they
one.
in this one? Because I know in Vietnam they used Australia to not have to get involved.
Nah, they did get involved one way or the other in this war. But of course, I'm going to talk about a lot of these secrets, revolving around the 6 Days War. But just so you know, Charles de Gaulle, the French president back then, said that the um, 6 Days War was an American-Egyptian war, and to add to it, France did have a hand in that war. Therefore, we can also expand it to calling it a Western Egyptian war. So, with that in mind, this was the first military defeat that Abdel Nasser had faced. This was one of the biggest defeats of our Arab nation, and I do not deny that. The Nasserists don't deny that, and Abdel Nasser himself did not deny that. He did say we were defeated. We were expecting them from the east. They bombed us from the west. Talking about the Americans, not indirectly. I think he took full responsibility and resigned, and that was what the war was about. If it wasn't the completion of Operation Cyanide, which was capture kill Abdel Nasser, and if that didn't and New Cairo, which both failed, so Operation Cyanide, which I'm going to talk about extensively later on, has immensely failed. The other one was to get Abdel Nasser to resign, cause political turmoil in Egypt, and therefore Egypt will become a rump state in the future and that cannot oppose Zionism, the Zionist aggression. But what
But
happened is that the popular support for Abdel Nasser was so strong that the people refused his resignation, went down to the street, protested it, and pressured parliament to refuse his resignation as president. And,
mm,
the people forced him to remain president for 3 more years until his death.
mm,
That was a victory because the political system in Egypt did not fall as the Israeli enemy intended. Nasserism remained, Abdel Nasser remained, the people stayed strong. Because history did not end in 1967. 3 weeks after the end of the war of attrition has begun. It began with Egyptian special ops shock troops defending from an attacking, uh, I believe, a tank division or a battalion. I don't know, exactly how it translates into English, which one. But a group of Israeli tanks were moving through
maybe a
Sinai.
troop or a platoon.
A platoon, probably, yes, a platoon. Israeli tanks were attacking courageously. Egyptian special ops troops attacked the Israelis, defeated them. The Israelis did the wrong land, did take the town, I believe, that we're aiming for. I believe, not sure. I should, focus this information better again. And of course, I will be talking about it because it's the beginning of the war of attrition, the 1,000 days war, as a lot of countries call it, and a lot of military, schools call it. The 1,000 days war, or the war of attrition, was a victory for Egypt and the defeat for Israel by Israel's own statements. Israeli leaders said, "We lost the war of attrition. It was an Egyptian victory." It began with an Egyptian victory 3 weeks after the 6 Days War, and it ended with the finalization of the wall of rockets, as we call it, the surface-to-air missile batteries on the western bank of the Suez Canal, which created an umbrella that would strike Israeli jets. That was one of the most massive victories for Abdel Nasser. This was a military victory, of course,
Victory for the
for the
region
Arab
as
nation.
well, because it limits the capacity of genocide. Because everyone, do you know what the one that I'm not trying to sideline, but there's one point that I do want to like really pisses me off, that always really gets missed by a lot of West people and the people in the region, is they like to believe that Israel is just going to stay contained, that they want to just keep this thing running for as long as they can within their own little box, and they're not going to expand. The whole point is to
Uh,
expand. They have been bombing Egypt, Syria, everywhere. They've
Jordan,
been taking land.
Lebanon,
They occupy land of Egypt. They occupy land
they
of
were
Syria.
attempting to
They
annex southern
occupy
Lebanon.
land of Palestine. Yes, and they and that was fucking very That's the most recent one, isn't it? The attempt to annex South Lebanon, isn't it?
Yes, that's actually one of the most recent engagements and one of the recent, expansionist plans, other than, officially annexing the Golan Heights. So, um, I mean, some socialist question mark would say that, you know. But yeah, Israel will never be content with what they had. They are an expansionist state, an
But it's
expansionist
also
entity.
it's the fact that they're built off a genocidal platform, and they're you know the guy who founded Israel was a guy who what's it um
An atheist.
well, yeah, he says he's an atheist. Yet he says that God owes him a piece of land and it belongs to him. Even though, if you actually ask any Jew or any Arab or anyone who owns the Torah, they'll tell you that that land belongs to fucking God. No one owns the fucking land. You fucking toss. Like, like the books are pretty fucking statemental that that land is a fucking holy land, and that's why for its entire history it's been multi fucking cultural along the well, it's not really multicultural because it's a what would you call it? Is it Is it cross cultural because it's Abrahamic, so it is a cultural block. But it's always had Christians, Muslims, and fucking used there over the last 1,000 years. Like, it's not fucking.
It's not rocket
Like,
science.
yeah, this belief of fucking this broken up shit comes from the way that we've disconnected ourselves from tribalism. It's
And
like
just
how
to
we
quote,
whack a moniker onto Saxons, we put Anglo on it, that is a Roman moniker for the territory we took from the Celts, and then all of a sudden we become this special thing that's different from being fucking German or anything like that, and we're different from being the Celts we invaded. So we now have to become this white fucking ornament of oppression across the globe as we span ourselves out. Oh, genocide in the English Celts wasn't enough for the British. Oh, I thought that I thought the Anglos would have stayed content with their Anglo land. No, they had to go and genocide the fucking Irish too, and the fucking Welsh. They had to go fucking what's it on a genocide of fucking natives all across the globe. They caused the genocide of America. America is just Britain, but it decided to go its own fucking way from Britain. It's a disconnect from it. Bit of influence from France too, but no one gives a fuck about the French.
okay, and just to, emphasis on this point, Henry Kissinger once said to the former Syrian president Hafez al-Assad, he told him, Israel sees you as the Native Americans. They want to drive you off and settle on your lands to invest in them and profit from them. And Henry Kissinger said that in one of his, small moments of honesty towards Hafez al-Assad. So yeah,
Trump moment.
from the guy that called himself more Jewish than American, for the guy that he was so proud of being more Zionist than Israel itself, than Israeli leaders themselves as well, is saying that to an Arab president. Here you have it from the guy himself, Henry Kissinger, one of the bastards of history.
From the
Um,
testicles mouth.
so history didn't end in 1967. There were victories after it. There was the war of attrition. There was 1973, the crossing of the Suez Canal that shattered this idea that the Israeli army is undefeated. And after that, we have waves of victories, ups and downs, yes, but victories. We had the liberation of South Lebanon in 2000. We have the defeat um, of the Israeli aggression, Zionist aggression on Lebanon in 2006. You have the wars in Gaza. And I just want to point out that always from 1967, from the start of the war attrition till the recent military engagement, the recent battle the Arab forces had against Zionism, which was the Battle of Jerusalem Sword, Marakat Saif al-Quds, that took place in last May. It's a testament that history didn't end in 1967. History didn't end with a setback, didn't end with a Naksa, not the 6 Days War. It carried on. It carried on. And people who still think about 1967, they're still stuck in this, have this mentality of defeatism, that worship defeat. They are the leaders of defeat, not Abdel Nasser, because Abdel Nasser did lead Egypt through victories right after that defeat. And Abdel Nasser prepared for future victories. So I just find it weird.
Well, I mean, this also comes into what we want to talk about later as well, with the Pan Arabism and the Pan Africanism, and them being
Yes,
an Arab, a Muslim, and an African.
yes. So it's absurdity. It's absurdity to blame everything on 1967. It's like nowadays a German politician blaming everything on World War II. 1967 didn't see the complete occupation of Egypt and its destruction, and the ending of its political system and its occupation and its division. No, it didn't. What happened in Egypt isn't the same that happened in Germany or Japan after World War II. It's so today an Arab saying anything bad is because of 1967. It's absurd. It's like a Japanese politician. All our problems are because of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, or a German politicians. All our problems are because of D-Day. All our problems are because of the Battle of Berlin. All our problems are because of these, this and that, the destruction of Germany. No, these people don't go back to World War II. Why should we be stuck in that idea of defeat? These people went on to build up their capitalist system, their system now.
Germany is now part of
Germany,
one of the biggest empires in the world, the EU.
yes, yes, yes. Germany is now leading the one of the leaders of the EU. It's just growing to rival to maybe one day rival the United States,
It
which I
already
don't
has a
see.
bigger monopoly on trade than the United States.
Yes, yes. However, it's still in the shadow of the US for now,
Only on
militarily.
capital. Only on capital. No, the French
And
military is a capable, productive force to match the U.S. military because its military is cheaper, and the new jet technology that's being developed, the new tank technology that's being developed,
well,
and the
I
new
haven't really
IFV
heard,
technology that's being developed. Well,
I haven't really digged
so
into
Britain,
it.
France, and Germany were working on a lot of things. Britain's gone their own way now, and they've been salty. They've took the Eurofighter name off the Typhoon, and they're just calling it the Typhoon now. Hello, Joanne. And the what's it? Uh, but no, the rule lining up. Basically, the whole relationship was that Britain and France would have been doing a lot more of the military stuff, whilst Germany has more of the capacity to fund. Germany had the best economy. Um, it got the most out of the
The
Americans'
EU, yeah,
fucking money
American
thing
help,
in during the World War Two. Yeah, well,
the
not just
Marshall
American
Plan.
help, but British help as well, because Britain and America were competing for control over the region. When France wanted to pull out of West Germany at the start of the Cold War, because de Gaulle was really anti-fascist and also wanted fucking Germany to have its own sort of control over itself. He's not. He's a weird guy. I'm not supporting De Gaulle in any way, but he did say some base shit. Like he did want to bomb Franco's train when he said that Franco was going to go to, I can't remember which princess it was wedding. He turned around and said to Franco that if you leave your country in your train, I will bomb the fucking tracks that you're riding on. Um, I think it was with artillery. But anyway, he wanted to pull out, and Britain and America was just like, yeah, we'll take the section of West Germany you're occupying. Then we're not leaving. So,
But yeah, so you see, this idea of defeatism is wrong.
but the
And Arab
defeat in
socialists,
1967 was nothing like the defeats of World War II. Like you were not absolutely
exactly,
obliterated.
that's my point. So if people who, if nations, countries that suffered defeats of World War II, a country that got nuked twice, now today is one of an economic powerhouse, which is now remilitarizing to support American imperialism in the future, in the near future. They won't blame their problems on World War II. They're beyond that. So why should we be stuck in 1967, which didn't see the same amount of destruction,
The
which
funny
then
thing,
was followed by massive victories? It's illogical, absurd. You cannot call yourself an Arab nationalist or socialist and believe in that defeatism. It's
but
absurd.
but one thing they should take heed on is that they should learn from this in the way in which that they should learn the fact that at least they are recognizing what has happened. They need to just recognize it with a lot less of a defeatist narrative, because the thing that puts that in the differentiation to the Japanese is the problem the Japanese have is that they haven't repented for their thing. They could do with at least recognizing what's happened in the sense that they've recognized it, but people who've been defeatists need to take away the defeatism and recognize that oh shit, I accidentally mute myself then. There's no such thing as a pure defeat of a movement, as Stokely Carmichael or Kwame Ture would put it. What there is there's setbacks. There's always setbacks, but you will never stop a revolutionary movement from fucking succeeding, because it will always push itself forward. But be that or the world will end. That is the movement of history. We have seen that throughout history, and that will be the process of history, because we are dealing with contradictions of class warfare like never seen on this planet before. The Roman Empire couldn't even have dreamt of having the control over the planet that even the British, the French, the American Empire have had at their infancy, no more than what they had at their fucking focus, at their full content. The genocides they have managed to be capable of, whether fucking intentional or not, like the massacre of fucking Britain and India, 1.8 billion people. 1.8 billion people is the estimated number of people killed in the British occupation of India.
So yeah, um, but I've left the biggest victory till the end. which was finishing Sadd al-Ali, the high dam, the Aswan Dam, that was started in the mid 50s, was finally completed in 1970, despite the military defeat of 1967. In the last anniversary of the revolution, in the last anniversary of the revolution that he attended in 1970, Abdul Nasser said that the Aswan Dam was completed. This dam, this project was the biggest development project in the 20th century. It had quickly developed Egypt in a way never seen before. Egypt became more developed in the development index than Italy, a NATO member, a European country, and an economic powerhouse. So Egypt was way more developed than Italy in the Cold War because of the High Dam. The High Dam, a project that not only helped expand the agriculture in Egypt, helped supply electricity for civilian consumption and for factories for the industry. It also protected Egypt from devastating floods. It helped Egyptian agriculture survive a long wave of drought that lasted 10 years, which caused famines elsewhere in Africa. And the water reservoir, Lake Nasser, the artificial water reservoir created by the project, today helps Egypt as well. This is why today, when with the conflict with Sadd al-Nahda, the Renaissance Dam taking place in Ethiopia, the Egyptians are going very full militarily on it, even though it does threaten the Nile River, which is the flowing of the Nile River, which is the life, which is like the lifeline of Egypt. However, thankfully, because the Aswan Dam exists, because Lake Nasser exists, um, Egypt got time. Egypt has the ability to survive until Egypt and Sudan and Ethiopia reach, a civilized agreement within international law on this very issue about the Nile River. So even the projects of Abdel Nasser, his victories, are keeping Egypt safe today. So you can see that Abdel Nasser wasn't the leader of defeats. He was one of the most accomplished leaders or political figures that ever existed. I mean, look at that resume. Look at these. He started a revolution, succeeded in a revolution, supported revolutions, safeguarded his revolution, developed his country beyond imagination. Even after a huge military defeat, he restructured the army, and which led to military victories. So as you can see, Abdel Nasser wasn't the leader of defeats. This is just another lie we have debunked. Abdel Nasser was a victorious man. His movement was a victorious movement. Egypt was a victorious country. The Arab nationalist, the Arab socialist movements survived and survived under him and continued to win and keep on winning. And today, as Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, the General Secretary of the biggest group in the Lebanese resistance, which you can say the Lebanese resistance, the Islamic resistance in Lebanon, said that the ages of defeat are over, and the days of defeat are over. They're beyond us. The days of victories has just begun. He said that talk in the 90s. He said that in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. And see, in every military engagement the Arabs had with the Zionist aggressors, we won. We won. We changed the equations in the regions time and time again, until we are going to reach a new equation today, that attacking Jerusalem, attacking Al-Quds, means regional conflict. Attacking Jerusalem, transgressing on people in Jerusalem, will mean a regional conflict. So this is the equation the axis is of resistance to nowadays is looking for and is achieving day by day, despite all the attempts to set it back. And we are keeping on winning. So this defeatism, I don't understand where it comes from, but this is a disgusting mindset, and it's also insulting for the Egyptian, for the this legacy of resistance that Egypt has. Egypt should not be treated as some, uh, you know, backseat country. Egypt had played a huge role in the Arab arena, in the Arab political arena. It was the biggest, most powerful country. It was the leading Arab country under Abdel Nasser, and it was the
And
leading in supporting resistance, not only in the Arab world, not only in Arab revolutions and Arab fights for independence, but elsewhere in Africa
well, I
and
mean,
and in
and
the world itself.
Egypt is a part of Africa which has the longest history of humanity, and is the birthplace of human civilization.
So, so seeing Egyptians being defeatists regarding that is insulting to their own country, which I do know Egyptians love their country, and I do know Egyptians are anti-Zionist despite their government. Um, and a
But
huge salute to the Egyptian people. They've
oh
been
yeah,
through a lot throughout the decades. You know, they deserve a little break every now and then. But of course,
they
we
gotta hold
shouldn't
in
we,
on it.
we shouldn't spit on this legacy of resistance of Egypt. We shouldn't fall for this defeatism. This is what the enemy wants. And this has
Exactly.
no place in our resistance society. Our society of resistance cannot have this mindset of defeatism. We who praise martyrdom because at least we're dying for something, at least our deaths, our blood, will result in liberation.
Yeah,
This
because
defeatism has no place
the other
in
option
this
ends up
society.
having a fucking tower block being bombed and you dying in mass, like it's been happening over the last fucking 70 years, 80 years.
Even then, these deaths, these are considered martyrdoms.
They're
Um
respected as such because they've lost their lives in that retrospect. But you know what I mean? Like it's not, when it
yes.
comes to like taking out some military to being taken out wantonly by like Israeli genocide, there's just weighing out the two sort of courses between them things.
So as you can see, as I told you before in the first stream I was a guest on, we
Yeah.
are a society of resistance, and only armed resistance have showed effectiveness against the occupier. Therefore, defeatism has no place in the mindset of the mindset of the Arab world, the Arab youth, especially when these people claim to support resistance and socialism and Arab unity, one way or the other. So, you know, if you are an Arab watching this, and you are sometimes, I know it's sometimes, listen, brothers and sisters, I know it's sometimes hard. I sometimes also succumb to the ideas that that we are in a very peculiar position. We are stuck between a rock and a hard place. You know, economic sanctions, planes flying over our heads, instability, wars, sectarianism everywhere. It is grim. It is dark. Yes, but we cannot succumb to it. There is a light at the end. That I know it's a cliche saying, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. That light should shine within you, my brothers and sisters. You are you are Arab people. You are a living people. You people cannot be killed. You are people that cannot be crushed. They can kill you. They can destroy your flesh. They can break your bones. They can spill your blood. But that doesn't mean you are dying. That doesn't mean you, as a people, are going to be exterminated. Because I know us, brothers and sisters. I mean, for crying out loud, we are the people that bore the banner of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We are the people that, we are the Abrahamic people of this region, of the Fertile Crescent especially, that followed uh, all the prophets, supported them on their journeys, fought against empires upon empires upon empires. We are the people that with a message to the world, with a human message to the world, a human peaceful message. And therefore, we cannot be murdered, we cannot be destroyed
You know what?
until we achieve this message, until we
The,
manage to free ourselves from these shackles, until we manage to unite, until we can manage to remove this cancer imposed on us by the West, until we can change these winds of history in our favor, because God is with us.
and like one thing as well, I'd really like to talk a really quick thing on it. I had explained to me when I was speaking at a train station with an Arab Libyan friend I'd met at a protest. Um, he was explaining to me what makes a prophet, and it was the a prophet is by the way he's chosen by God. It's not just of the simple thing of like the Christians where you have this story of some angel comes and speaks to you and la da da. No, you you end up finding a purpose in the way in which that you are set to do no evil. Like it's sort of you become a person of the people. Like every prophet you ever look to their history, they've it's always been that they've not just been of themselves; they've been of a wider struggle, and they are givers, not takers. It's always sort of been Christians do discuss this as well. The saints actually follow the same line of logic as prophets. They're supposed to be people who are chroniclers, who do no evil, and are supporters of the greater struggle of their people. And have always been strugglers of the people. Fucking 9 out of 10 of fucking. Oh wait, I've got a time to do a number thing. 9 out of 11 of people who fucking have ever been like a saint or a prophet have always been a key point in struggle within the changes of these religions. I mean, you could even go back to religions that aren't Abrahamic or even culture that isn't religious, philosophy and stuff like that, where you see things flip and flop at really big points of struggle, where you have these very key characters that come up that are core to the struggle at hand, and it makes you question what is the core parlance to that. As someone who's agnostic and brought up with Christian religiosity, I don't quite know, but the way I just handle it is I just try and stick to the science and say I embody God as the entirety of humanity and nature entwined. It's not really, it's something that could be conceived as anything and not conceived at all. That's the way I see it. I guess, like, that's a way you could word omnipresence, but not so much omnipotence. I don't know whether omnipotence is a clarifiable thing if I was ever to believe in religion. Wait, it's pronounced omnipotent, isn't it? I've really probably pissed off loads of people. Oh, well. Fuck them. Sorry.
Yeah. So, as I was saying,
Nice
it might be
intro.
dark, but we will emerge victorious in the end. That is a truthful promise from God.
Well, that was sort of the similar thing he was getting towards. That is that as much as there might not be, like, there might be anything new coming up in the sight of someone being actual clarified this or that. The idea of people who are saint like rising up is something that's going to happen because it's bound to happen. We're at a point of people struggle, and there are always going to be great people who rise up, who will commit themselves, who will sacrifice themselves, who will do no evil, and will go till the end. And that's what we need. Whether that comes from someone who's religious or comes from someone who's not, I don't really care, so long as they are for the people and they are a socialist and they want to build the world that's moving forward. Because as far as I'm concerned, I hate the anti-religiousness that exists in Marxism. I think it's fucking ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I mean, Engels himself talked about these so-called contemporary British communists that were anti-theists. He told them that they're anti-socialist by their behavior.
Yep. And that's a really funny thing to get at the people that think fucking what's it, Engels and was anti-religion, like because Marx was fucking edgy about it.
I think
People
Marx was
people
the
should
edgy
read
one,
more.
and
Or Marx was the edgy one.
Marx was the edgy one, and Engels was like the one rephrasing it better.
Mind you, Engels is a fucking capitalist as well. I mean, he didn't like being a capitalist, but he was still a capitalist.
He's better at rephrasing stuff.
But this is the thing. What's it? This is one of the things I really like to point at when it comes to the third world. people who aren't even Marxists have got more of a fucking click on what Engels has fucking said than other people that have said the first world Marxists. So maybe first world Marxists should take a fucking glance, reconsider all the shit you're chatting where you're telling people read this, read that, this, do that. Maybe reaffirmate what you fucking understand. Because Engels disproves a lot of this fucking shit that you people don't understand. It's not even a topic of this discussion, but it's a nice funny point to point out. Fucking imbeciles. You gotta love the first world, haven't you? They have the fucking attention span of a donkey on cocaine.
But yeah, moving on. We're still talking about Abdel Nasser being a freedom fighter. So, um, what's one of these myths surrounding him? So some people will call him a Soviet puppet, but I mean, he was a friend of the Soviet Union, of course. But he was first and foremost one of the founders of the non-aligned movement, positive non-alignment. And when you are non-aligned and most of the West are, you know, imperialist, colonialist countries that have oppressed your people, I think you'd be more friendly to the East. At the same time, you'd be also wary of it.
Yes, so this is actually where the DPRK comes in as well, because the DPRK were massive supporters of the non-aligned movement and one of the biggest leaders of it. Because the DPRK, whilst they were aligned with the Soviet Union, didn't want to be involved in a big fucking nuclear war, so they were fairly aligned with a lot of the third world countries. There's a lot of history about it that people don't talk about, but the DPRK went and met a lot of these different countries in Africa that aligned with Egypt for the non-aligned movement. I had another name and I can't remember what it is, but don't worry about it.
Can you repeat that?
I had another name and I don't know what it is, but don't worry about it.
Okay, okay. So they'd call him a Soviet puppet, but he was more friendly to the Soviets because the other options were not so good. They all tried to assassinate him and overthrow him and conspiring against him at one point. Well, at every single point. But
You'd be kicking yourself in the leg if you sided with the British after fucking releasing yourself from them as well.
yeah, of course. But here's the deal: of people that would call him an American agent. I swear to God, I don't know where this comes from. Where does this come from? It's really absurd. It's an absurd accusation, and I don't feel I need to talk about it. But
I would
unfortunately, I
say
have to.
I'd say it sounds like it's a projection of what Sadat ended up being.
Yeah, I don't think it's from coming from Sadat. No,
No, I don't think it's
not
coming from him. I think it's a projection of what he is from people who
yes.
support him. So they can
Uh,
blame everything on Nasser instead of Sadat.
no, no, no. These comes from people that like legit Muslim Brotherhood believers and maybe some leftists. I think that really turned on Abdel Nasser calling him an American agent.
Oh, you'll probably just
It's
get some first world fucking leftists that just don't fucking give fucking shit about understanding what's going on in the region and just want to hate Nasser
also
because
some Arab leftists, but most of these people, that you engage with are 16-year-olds who are just getting into politics or old boomers that, you know, don't really like the man for one reason or the other. However, I think I should address this even though I don't feel I have to or I need to. But unfortunately, reality is often disappointing. Why Abdel Nasser is not an American agent, and why do people believe he's an American agent? Have you ever wondered that? Okay, okay. I'm going to ask you, Jay. Sorry, excuse me, Mike. Mike, I have another friend called Jake. I always confuse you too. Sorry. He's a lovely guy from Ireland. But yeah, Mike.
eh,
Let me ask you a question. Why do you think do people say Abdel Nasser is an American agent? Like you have one chance to answer this correctly.
yeah,
What
I
evidence
just
do they have?
I don't think they're riding off evidence. I think they're trying to if they have evidence, they're mixing different parts of Egyptian history up and they're convulsing what has happened after Nasser into what happened during Nasser, or blaming NASA for infiltrations that were happening that he couldn't have been aware of if it was happening anyway. I don't
Well,
know.
kind of close, but not really. What we can say is they have, between quotations, evidence. Between quotations, put two question marks besides that. Evidence? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Why is that? Okay, so what evidence do they have? They have a book called Game of Nations, Labat al-Umam, that really talks in details about CIA cooperation with Abdel Nasser, or Abdel Nasser cooperation with the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, La CIA, if you're from Latin America. Um, why is that? Uh, because this book got really very influential and got put on a pedestal, and there were two more books written from Egyptian writers. One of them titled Abdel Nasser and the Game of Nations, and the other in Arabic, Abdel Nasser wa La'bat al-Umam, and the other one I confuse between two titles. It's either the American July Revolution or the uh, it's something along these lines. I think Thawrat Aylul Amerikiyan, like in America's eyes. Um, there was, of course, some CIA operation called Fat Fucker to either reform the king of Egypt or to depose
Wait,
him.
they called it Fat Fucker.
I mean, the guy was a fat fucker. Well, I mean, he was a thief, a womanizer, a gambler, an alcoholic.
So they come up with a sick name like that, but then they run out of names and just called another one Operation Cyanide. Like they were really American creativity went really down the hills. Like, well, we're gonna assassinate him. What do we call it? Oh, we call it Operation Cyanide. It's that's like something a 14-year-old would come up with when they're like fucking still cutting themselves or something. Like
Yeah, but
it's their new metal band, and like I'm
so
saying this as someone who's into metal.
so who wrote this incredible book? This major piece of evidence against Abdel Nasser. Who wrote this book called Game of Nations? The answer is simple. Miles Copeland Jr. Who was Miles Copeland Jr., you dear viewers might ask? He was a part of the CIA. When he wrote that book, he became a former part of the CIA. But as it's general knowledge, all books published by people affiliated with the United States government, especially the CIA, be it current or former, should if they when they intend to write any kind of books, memoirs, and political analysis, even a Wattpad fan fiction, they needed to get approved by the CIA, by the President of the United States. So you have a book written by a former CIA member of the CIA being approved by the CIA and published. Do you honestly think this book isn't anything but American propaganda? Do you think honestly that there is truth in that book? Because that book speaks extensively about how Miles Copeland supported Abdel Nasser in removing the king, how he helped him build the intelligence, how he did this, did that, gave him money, gave him funds, was cooperating with him on so many levels. But the truth is, it's all false. There's another book called Legacy from Ash, I believe. In English, it's in Arabic. Uh, I forgot the name in Arabic. I had it on the tip of my tongue, I swear.
It's a dangerous place to leave things.
Legacy from Ash. Uh, mm, Irith! I just remembered. Irith min al-Ramad. Legacy from Ash. It talks about the CIA from its foundation until 2008, the end of Bush Jr.'s second term as President of the United States. Legacy from Ash has no spoken sources, has no other books as sources. It is basically CIA declassified CIA documents compiled into a book. declassified CIA documents compiled into a book, and it is the truth. This is the truth. This is what the CIA have said, told their operatives, kept in the darkest little bins. It has everything. And from what it said about Abdel Nasser is that the only times the CIA have really, wanted to work with Abdel Nasser is that at the beginning after the revolution, first things first, people at the beginning didn't know who was the leader of the revolution. Was it Abdel Nasser? Was it Sadat? Was it Naguib? There's a lot of questions floating around. But when it was realized that Abdel Nasser was the actual leader of the revolution, the CIA went to him, gave him $3 million as a sign of goodwill, and then asked him if he would like to cooperate, and they'd give him more funds and help him build a radio tower for propaganda purposes. Abdel Nasser refused, used these $3 million of goodwill to help fund the building of the Cairo Tower. I think it was called the Cairo Tower.
Yeah, what the CIA was trying to do is something that's all imperialists are doing across the globe, even today. China does it. They loans, even gifts of money. What the attempt is to build bourgeois institutions of power that require more money off that country. It's to get them tied on. Imperialism is based off finance capital.
And the other instance of the CIA wanting to support Abdel Nasser in one way or the other. Let me just search his name because I forgot to type his name in my notes, and it's a very German name. So, okay. I think I got it. I got him. I believe I got him. Yes. Otto Skorzeny, that SS officer from Austria. I think this is the guy, unless I'm confusing him with another SS guy. But I know that the CIA has sent him to help Abdel Nasser structure his intelligence agencies. He also did, and this guy's, CV also has working with Peron in Argentina and being a Mossad agent. Quite, quite a work history, don't you think?
Quite a fucking resume.
Quite a resume. That's it. A CV is a resume in English. We call it.
We call them CVs here as
Oh, you
well.
called as well. All right. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah. It's Americans that call them resumes. We call them CVs too.
Oh yeah, okay. So, good. Good. I'm the good side. I'm on the good side of the English language. Yes, I
Well, I
am
mean, what's it?
insulting American
The,
English.
the good side of the English language is Yorkshire English. You gotta stay away from that Queen's English.
What he said. So I think what he said, but but yeah. So this is what the book Legacy from Ash talks about: the CIA cooperation with Abdel Nasser, $3 million, just a gesture of goodwill, and sending some Nazi SS officer to help him structure the intelligence agency. He was also a Mossad agent. Go figure. Who also killed scientists in Egypt because they pose a threat to the existence of is the Israeli enemy. But that's just people sometimes conveniently ignore he was a Mossad agent and just focus about him helping Abdel Nasser. But be that as it may,
Yeah,
there's
doesn't
more
people
things.
understand how infiltration works? If you have been infiltrated, you don't tend to know about it. Like how the Soviet Union managed to get the fucking nuclear plans off the
I mean,
Americans without them knowing. And then
the biggest.
Stalin got to turn around and basically be like, yeah, what? You told me you're going to nuke it? I already know.
The Mossad, the biggest. I heard that the biggest Mossad agent in Egypt at that time was Abdel Nasser's own son-in-law, codename the Angel. Now I've heard that he was
Christ.
an Egyptian double agent, and he died mysteriously in the UK by being thrown off the balcony. But I don't know. I don't
Oh,
want to
he
get
went.
thrown
He
off
went
my
out. He
balcony.
went out the Lawrence of Arabia way. That doesn't mean
Yes,
he wasn't an ally of the UK. That just means the UK didn't want him to fucking spit anything because that's what they did with Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia, quote unquote, died in a bike accident.
quote unquote. But
I don't fucking believe he died in bike accident.
I
Well,
mean, I
he
don't
died on a
believe that either.
bike, but he did. It wasn't an accident.
It's like saying Hassan Kamil Sabah, a Lebanese scientist that studied in the United States, died because his brake accidentally malfunctioned when he was swerving on a road and then parked inside a ditch one day before he went back to Lebanon with his, inventions. Because we can't have nice things, can we?
Well, if you have nice things, we'll have to just do the Crusades again. Come on, man. Like, remember when you guys had better healthcare than us, and then we were like, whoa,
Right,
whoa, we should just commit
right.
fucking murder, murder.
But the CIA didn't.
Europeans.
Yeah, but the CIA didn't just attempt to work with Abdel Nasser. They also tried to end him. And here's the story. So, the United Kingdoms during 1956, the Suez Crisis, the tripartite aggression, as we call it, Al-Adwan al-Thulathi, went to the USA, to Eisenhower, told him, we need to assassinate we are ready to just take a shot, kill Abdel Nasser, roll into the country, set up a puppet government, and just get done with this guy. Now Eisenhower said no. Not because he cared about Abdel Nasser, quite on the contrary, he didn't really give a damn. But because if you kill Abdel Nasser in the heat of this conflict, you will make him a martyr. You will make him a legend above legends. And now go and fight a man beyond the grave with the status of a great martyr fighting against imperialism. You cannot.
I
So
mean,
the
even without them doing that to him, he still has such a rapport that he does inspire a lot of fucking people when it comes to Arab struggle. Not just Arab struggle, but even Pan African struggle is very inspired by the actions of Nasser. Kwame Ture spoke on Nasser on a fair few occasions and about how and the movements of Nasser and Gaddafi are very, very important to what was needing to be going on in the entirety of Africa and the Middle East.
yes, the Americans opted for another solution. Let him live. Let Abdel Nasser live. But slowly kill his reputation, slowly kill him after his death, make him fade away, make him become a bad person in the eyes of the public, tarnish his legacy so that nobody will rise in his name ever again. So, I mean, that's what the CIA did and tried to do. They might have won, they might have failed, but eventually Abdel Nasser still today is an icon for millions upon millions. So I'd say they fail, and the very fact I am here talking today in favor of Abdel Nasser to correct these mistakes of history and this unfairness towards this great man shows, instead of actually demonizing him, shows that the Americans have failed in their endeavors.
Well, I'd say that what the because I still need to learn a lot about these people, but I'd say that even as someone who's part of what we want to build within the regards to the Lumpen struggle, I say a lot of people like us end up being heavily inspired by the struggles that come from a lot of these demarchists because fucking let's say as much as their struggles have flopped and failed, they are showing a true spirit that isn't just about this. We all need to all fucking be the same, do the same assimilative ideas that a lot of these Eurocentric fucking humanistic quote
But their
unquote
struggles
communists
didn't
want to
fail.
do.
Their struggles didn't fail. They
Well,
succeeded.
you know what I mean.
Yes, I
Well,
know.
they've had setbacks.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. The what's it? I mean, struggle
Comrade
is
Mike.
only struggle never is completely defeated. It is only ever setback.
Yes. Terminology is needed. You might lose, a conflict within the struggle, but never the struggle. You might lose a battle, but never the war. But yeah, but however, with something very interesting regarding Miles Scotland. He was projecting onto Abdel Nasser. He was projecting what he did to other political leaders in the Arab world. Everything he said in his book regarding Abdel Nasser, the CIA actually did with another Arab leader, Arab between quotations, in the Syrian Republic after its independence from France. There was a military coup d'etat that lasted for a few months before getting overthrown by yet another military coup d'etat. But this first military coup d'etat was backed by the CIA. It put Hosni al-Zaim in charge as a military autocrat in Syria that did sign the armistice with the Israeli enemy in 1948. Hosni al-Zaim was very sympathetic to the United States. He was backed by the United States. He was backed by the CIA, and everything that Myers Copland said about Abdel Nasser in his book, The Game of Nations, was a projection of what happened with Hosni al-Zaim. Fortunately, Hosni al-Zaim didn't last long, and because if he did last, then there would have been no unification. There would have been no United Arab Republic. But the thing is, the book Legacy from Ash says that the only successful American-backed coup in the Middle East was Operation Ajax. That the military coup, the pro-Iranian Shah military coup d'etat against the Prime Minister of Iran, Mossadegh. I believe his name is Musaddaq. Pronounce
Mossadegh.
I don't know. You
It's well, wait.
your
Well,
language.
Persian has a weird sort of. So doesn't Persian still have that like Germanic tinge? Well, it's not Germanic because it comes before Germanic, but the tinge Germanic has from Egyptian, where it's got a more like, so it probably is more like I don't know, like I'm trying to think because I was speaking with someone who spoke Persian around me, and it had that thing I can't remember. Uh, it was a sound geezer, like fucking what's it? Iranian communist
Just need to check his
and a
name.
Muslim.
Need to check his name in Arabic because the pronunciation in Arabic is the closest to the Iranian one, the Persian one. Oh, there is no actual. Oh, here it is. First one. Okay. العربية. Here it is. Muhammad Musaddaq.
No, Mossadegh, yeah.
Musaddaq. Yes, I was correct the first time. You English
Good stuff.
speakers and your Muzadeh. But
Mossadegh.
be that
What
as it
was it?
may, that was the only successful military CIA-backed military coup d'etat in the Middle East. Therefore, the coup d'etat or the revolution of the July Revolution in Egypt of 1952 couldn't have been backed by the United States. Same goes to revolution in Iraq, Yemen, Libya, here and there and everywhere. And speaking of Libya, the
No, but
Libyan
do you know what it
Revolution.
was? No, do you know what it was before you get onto Libya? The 1950s. So the revolution was the British just revolting against themselves and kicking themselves out. That's what it was.
You mean the Operation Ajax in
No,
Iran?
what about the? Oh, no, I'm taking the piss. Like the actual revolution for Egypt was just Britain funding a revolution against themselves and destroying their own empire.
No, 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 no. Britain did not fund the revolution
Yeah, I
of
know, but that's what I
Egypt.
mean. I'm just saying, like, if people want to keep like saying, "Oh, well, this did that," I'm just gonna like take it to the full extreme. Like, what America's controlling them, well, the fuck it, Britain was controlling them. Then we'll just say that. Like, people are really gonna take the piss, like, because that's where it really, really gets absurd. And it's like, why would NASA turn around and fucking get himself co-opted by the Americans? All he wanted to do was fucking get some fucking weaponry and buy some more fucking shit in, and America's like, "Ooh, we'll give you some money." You know, they're not gonna side with them, so fucking what's it? These people are
Um,
clowns. We're going to Libya, so
but yeah, you guys, you are from the CIA. Abdel Nasser wasn't an agent of America. What more than the declassified documents of the CIA from its foundation till 2008? There's a lot of interesting stuff as well regarding Lebanon, but I'm not going to dive into that just yet. Not today, though. Um,
soon.
yeah, soon enough. But yeah, Abdel Nasser was no American agent. And by the way, speaking of Libya, the Libyan revolution was a Nasserist one in 1969. That was a victory because it did expel the British and the American bases in Libya that the Americans used to bomb Egypt in 1967. So that was a victory as well.
Gaddafi was based. Well, what he did to the communists wasn't, but Gaddafi was pretty based on a lot of things back then. Like he's not as bad as he ended up being a little bit down the line, you know.
down the line, Al-Qaddafi had sold out.
He lost his way, unfortunately, but
He
he
did lose
was
his way, and I still don't forget, haven't forgotten him for what he
he
had
was
done
he was a good Muslim before then as well, though. So it was such like a weird thing. Like he was such a
to
spiritual leader of the people. Like
Sayyid Imam Musa Sadr, a Lebanese figure for peace and coexistence that formed the first Lebanese resistance against Zionist aggression, who went to Libya to ask for Arab support against the Israeli invasion, disappeared and hasn't been disappeared with the two people that were accompanying, that were with him on his trip to Libya. He was never seen again. None of these three people were seen again, and yeah, most likely they were shot the night that the plane landed, and they were thrown into a grave because Imam Musa Sadr wasn't really on good terms with the PLO in some aspects, not all of them, in some aspects, which might have gotten Gaddafi to eliminate him because the Americans did at one point tell him to stop cooperating with people like Ahmad Jibril and favoring Yasser Arafat. But it's a can of worms. It's a can of worms that I'm not too keen on opening right now. Muammar al-Qaddafi was a very complex character, a very weird one as well. He was quite a character, let's just say that. But yeah,
yes,
Abdel Nasser was no American agent, and people will accuse him of being an American agent as well because following the Rogers Plan. But I want to quote the late Ahmad Jibril, founder of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General Command, which was a great military leader that reshaped how guerrilla warfare is fought in the Middle East. Introduced a lot of new operations, such as using gliders to bomb tanks, to bomb military bases. Has anyone seen people using gliders to bomb bases? I haven't seen it yet, but he done it. The late 1980s, Night of the Gliders, great operation. How about his negotiation skills, cutting out 1,000 prisoners in Zionist prisons in exchange for three captured IDF soldiers? The, these people that were freed in that negotiation went on to form the basis of the first Palestinian Intifada. And from the people released was the final living member of the um, Japanese Red Army who attacked the Lod airport, which is now they call the Ben Gurion airport, and who has now living in political amnesty in Lebanon. So, fun fact. So I'm
fascinating
going to
fact.
quote Ahmad Jibril. Not many people would like him, but I believe he is a reliable source of information from what I have seen from him, from
I
what he
mean,
said, and from checking the facts.
there's a coincidence with a lot of things with struggle that you always get these like. I mean, this is the way I sort of explain to the weird things with people like Gonzalo. You get these people who are that end up being cunts, but also not cunts with a lot of things they do. Like they can write great stuff, they come up with great ideas. Even at the start of things, are very, very for the struggle, but like either selfishness or megalomania or self-aggrandize. Some ends up corrupting them. Like they're not pure. They got good intentions, but they're not pure, and they get
But
corrupted
Ahmad
by their own
Jibril did
impurity.
have both purity and good intentions
Fair enough, but
because
I'm just saying there's a thing that comes with a lot of aristocrats and struggle that they end up fucking doing stupid shit.
good intentions but terrible execution.
Yeah,
Ahmad Jibril said in a documentary about his life, may he rest in power. Allah yarhamu, may God have mercy on his soul. He passed away in, I believe, back in May. No, 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 no. Yes, I do. I think back in May or June. One of these, I believe, in June.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I remember when we were talking about it and
It was around that time.
whatever.
It was around that time. He did live to see the end of the Battle of Jerusalem's Sword, and he died happily, I believe, knowing that they defeated Zionism once more. But the thing is, There was a documentary revolving his life on Al Mayadeen TV. Al Mayadeen TV is exceptionally a great channel for political analysis and documentaries. Unfortunately, right now they have only two languages: English and Spanish. No, not English. Arabic and Spanish. Excuse me. They have opened a new website in English. They do post news in English, but I don't know if they have translated their documentaries yet. I don't believe so.
That's probably gonna
But
take a long time.
yeah, but you guys, if people here understand Arabics, are learning Arabic, or are Arabs and speak Arabic, I would highly recommend watching their documentaries. They're very informative on a lot of these figures. So, go check them out. Good source of information. Ahmad Jibris, while being asked around these areas, 1969, 1970, he said that he was approached by Abdel Nasser after Abdel Nasser had accepted the American Rogers Plan during the war of attrition, because things were getting heated up pretty quickly between Israel and Egypt during the war of attrition, the Thousand Days War, which I want to remind everybody, it was an Egyptian victory. Huh? Even by Israeli accounts, it was an Israeli defeat. He
Huh? Did you get did you get too angry about Israel? Did the IDF cut you off? Yeah, I think his electric's gone, so he'll be back after the break.
Yeah, I'm already back.
Oh,
The
there we go.
electricity cut off just for like a few seconds.
It was a quick blip. Switched to the grid.
Yeah, a quick blip. That's it. Abdel Nasser told Ahmed Jibril that the Palestinian resistance factions, the Fidaiyin, should not be fractured, should not be fragmented. They should work together, despite whatever differences that might have with each other. They need to work together to stay hand in hand. In one hand, fighting against Zionism. He told them, right now, Egypt isn't ready for a full-scale war of liberation. Egypt is rebuilding. It's rebuilding its infrastructure, rebuilding its army, restructuring it to be able to fight effectively. It is now engaging in skirmishes, engaging um, on a new level of military preparation never seen before. Operation Caucasus, I believe it was its name, the biggest operation by the Soviet Union to arm an ally nation. It was this operation regarding arming Egypt and helping it to structure its army. So Abdel Nasser told him, we are preparing ourselves for a war of liberation, yes, but for now, don't wait for us. Stay united and keep on fighting. Abdel Nasser cared deeply about Palestine. His first experience of actual military struggle was in 1948, and Nakba was in Palestine. He was surrounded. He was wounded. He wanted to keep on fighting. If we go back to the memoirs of Hamad Naguib in 1955, The Fate of Egypt, uh, he did say that Abdel Nasser got wounded, and despite all of that, wanted to keep on fighting. And if you look into the history of the Egyptian military, you'd find notes from the higher ups of, small officer Abdel Nasser in 1948 that, spoke about his bravery, about his resolve to fight for the cause. He did, as a kid growing up, he did struggle, he did join protests, organize protests, join programs to fight British imperialism and colonialism in Egypt and to fight for Egyptian self-determination. But in Palestine, I believe his resolve was just made clearer. He wanted to build Egypt up so it can face up to Israel and liberate Palestine. He wanted to keep on fighting. He supported the Fidaiyin. I believe, in the first Congress of the PLO that was going to take place in Jordan, Abdel Nasser I believe Abdel Nasser was the one that persisted that it be held in Jerusalem. Back then it was under Jordanian control. Not in anywhere in Jerusalem, in the capital of Palestine, in the undivided capital of Palestine. And it did take place. He supported the PLO, supported its creation, tried to fix relations between the PLO and other Arab countries, such as the Cairo Agreement between the Lebanese government and the PLO, and resolving the Black September, one of his last actions before passing away, before being assassinated. And there's a lot of evidence backing up the idea that Abdel Nasser was murdered and didn't die from nothing, from natural illnesses. One of his last actions in the Arab summit that held place in Cairo was to reconcile King Hussein of Jordan with Yasser Arafat of the PLO after the events of Black September, which might as well have been orchestrated by Israel, because, again, the War of Attrition 1969 was the highest year, the highest point of conflict in the war. That year had the IDF jumping from border to border, skirmishing with the Egyptian army, then with the Syrian army, fighting the skirmishing with the Jordanians, and with Lebanon. They were all over the place, so they needed, like a breathing spot. So maybe Black September was orchestrated by them. It's logical. But then again, Abdel Nasser always wanted the Arabs to stay united. After the Arab Summit had ended, he said goodbye to, I believe, the Prince of Kuwait, sat down, and the final words were, "I'm feeling great, and I'm feeling relaxed," and he died, according to his doctor. So, Abdel Nasser always had Palestine in his heart. Since he was a kid, and that love became determination in 1948. And with every chapter of his struggle, his resolve to liberate Palestine only grew stronger. And this is why Abdel Nasser is an icon of resistance for all of the Arab world. Like regardless if he's an icon for everybody else, I just want to focus right now on Palestine, because this is where we will always end
but
up.
it's not even. But it's not even just that as well. It's just something that my Arab Libyan friend got on about is that these being an Arab is more important than being a Libyan or being a Palestinian or being a Syrian or being an Egyptian or being anything. Pan-Arabism. This is something that is intrinsic to not just the Arab people, but even the religion they follow. Islam is very pan in the way it organizes itself. They're not, this is a struggle that everyone is combined into. So any true Arab is for his nation, is for his people. Well, their heart must be bleeding at the sight of fucking Palestine, bleeding.
It is the center. It is the center of the Arab cause, of the pan-Arab cause, of the Arab nationalist and the Arab socialist movement. It is where we will always end up, because this is the center of everything. Palestine. All of our hopes and dreams rest on
Center of the
liberating
world.
Palestine. All our efforts go there. And all our fight is towards that. And Abdel Nasser knew that. Abdel Nasser wanted to strengthen Egypt, to make it the leading power in the Arab world, to liberate Palestine. Unfortunately, he was murdered before he could see the day of liberation. And, day by day, I feel that liberation is coming soon. Despite however, it may look grim right now, but Israel has proven itself to be weaker than a spider's web.
We
And
can't let setbacks make us deter, because deterring away from struggle because of
exactly,
setbacks will make us
we can
as bad
we
as a
cannot
opportunist or defeatist.
we cannot be stuck in the mindset of defeatism. We need to keep the idea of resistance. Resistance has ups and downs. You may have setbacks, but you will win eventually. This culture of resistance, we should cultivate it and strengthen it, instead of being worshippers of the feet, leaders of the feet. Um, so day by day, I think Jerusalem is becoming closer to us. One day the walls would go down, the settlers will leave, and armed resistance will, give us its final fruit, and it's the complete liberation of the Arab homeland, starting from Palestine.
It's not even just like it's just freeing that. It's freeing the land of Arabs, the land of Jews, the land of
Christians.
Christianity. I mean, because this caused. Well, I mean, the Christian land is more so Ethiopia, and they don't get enough credit for the fact that they started Christianity. Um, Everyone's talks about Romans, Catholics, this, that, the other. The first ever fucking Catholics were the fucking Ethiopians. Fucking check your fucking history. Um, but yeah, no, the Jerusalem will still be the homeland to that because what happened was Christ visited Ethiopia. Was brought up in Ethiopia as well. Actually, if I remember rightly, yeah, no, yeah, I learned it from comics. Right, he was brought up in
Uh,
Africa. He was brought up in Africa.
I, I don't think that is the case. Uh,
Well, he had to escape from fucking Middle East because of fucking Romans.
uh,
Brought up in Africa.
I think he was born in the Levant.
Oh yeah, no, it was, but they were still on the run when he was born. You remember rightly at the end of the story, they had to fucking still keep going because the Romans were all caught up with the commotion as to why the fuck loads of people are surrounding this fucking child being born. They're like, bugger.
I don't really know all about that. What I know is that he was born in the Levant, and he had a lot of influence in the Levant. And as a Muslim, I believe he was saved from the fate of getting crucified. However, someone did get crucified. I
Remember,
mean, this is a
remember, by the time
historical
you
fact.
hit, by the time you hit, like, by the time you're hitting like 14 to 16 around these times, you are already a traveling person who probably looks after yourself. Like, we're going back at least 2,000 years at this point. So, like, the thing I'd say is that with Jesus, from what Kwame Troy said about him being brought up in Africa, that would have been in his early years. He'd have come back to the Middle East because the whole story of Jesus was his comeback to all the society he had escaped from, and he was protected. I know the second one is definitely true. He was protected by the Africa from the Romans. Unfortunately, they couldn't protect him from Judas. Uh, but they went and visited
Okay.
Ethiopia.
As Muslims, we believe he was spared such fate of crucifixion, and one day he shall return in the second coming with Al Mahdi, Sharif,
There's there's there's
which,
orthodox there's orthodox people that believe Stalin is a saint.
I mean, if they want to, why not? I mean, yeah, Christian saints, to us at least, were good men and women who believed in God, maybe not in the exact same way we Muslims believe in them, but that doesn't mean they weren't
They're,
really.
they're our budget version of prophets. Okay, we're doing our best.
Ah,
He had old tatty boots and a shitty flat when he died. Does that make him good enough? Like, you should look at what Stalin had when he died. He had nothing. Like
ah.
the guy tried to leave being in government, but they wouldn't let him.
All right. Well, how many viewers do we have right now?
Zero, but what's it? What do you
Uh,
expect?
I was gonna ask if someone has a questions in the comments.
Um, I don't know.
Sad existence.
Maybe the people with the ad blocker don't show up as numbers. I don't know. I don't know
Hmm.
how. I don't know how the shit tube works.
But
It's not difficult.
I just noticed I have, cuts all over my butt. That damn bird. Never noticed this before. But yeah, forget about that. Going off topic here. I think we should wrap this up. You know,
with
finish it.
tinfoil.
We were going to talk for 40 minutes. Expended it for 2 hours. Nicely done, I believe.
I told you if you fucking give anything to me, I'm gonna make fucking what's it 2 minutes take fucking ages.
But alright, so here you have it, everybody. Some myths, some of the biggest myths about Abdel Nasser that has been disproven, and truth has prevailed. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and I'd also like to thank Nasser TV for their great analysis videos regarding this. Again, the it's a Nasser's YouTube channel. It offers a lot of great content about Abdel Nasser. However, it's in Arabic, so maybe not all of you would be able to go through it.
You can always spend a couple of years, may take longer than that though, learning Arabic and then do it. I am taking the piss if anyone thinks I'm expecting them to go and learn a new language to learn stuff, but it's not a bad idea. You'll learn a lot about the culture. Language is the most important part of culture.
But this is
You know,
why I am here. I am here to help people understand more. This is who I am. I am not going to say I'm a political YouTuber. I'm not a political commentator. I'm not a writer or a politician. I'm just a man
he's
with
a fucking
knowledge who
human
pass this
being.
knowledge on others.
I mean, that's exactly the reason why I come to you and why I like what you gotta say, because you're just a fucking, you're a person, someone who's coming out to be this fucking quasi-intellectual dickhead. You speak your fucking opinion, you say what you fucking think, and that's what I like, that's what I like to be, that's what other people like to be. Like, we don't like these people that are, they think they know how the ground fucking runs, because, as far as things gone, I've been fucking incorrect on a lot of things in this stream, and fucking learning a lot of things in this stream, because the whole point of this is to highlight the fact of how we can't just be professionalists and preaching to authority, because if you go to the people who are actually from their culture and speak to the people who've grown up in their culture, in their own region, under this oppression, going through these things, they see these things that are going on, and you're coming at it with, like, I'm not even doing this to insult you or anything like that, but comparative to, like, the many people that are in your struggle, you don't have anywhere near as many experiences as a lot of other people, same as a lot of people in my own class. I don't have anywhere near as much experience as, and you're already speaking volumes. So this is why I like the fact of why this is building up and why this can attract, because there may be some more and more people who are even in worse a position and can speak even louder. I
Could
want this
have
to
done it.
eventually cause a chain reaction.
I couldn't. You can't just. It's not all because of me. I'm just here. I'm also learning and passing on what I'm learning to you people, especially you, Comrade Mike, and other comrades who are willing to learn. And I hope you actually do link a Discord server that is focused on giving and helping people learn about Arab socialist figures, the Arab leftists community on Discord. Me and Comrade Mike here are members of that community, so I hopefully it be linked in this.
Yeah, I could put it in the description. That won't be an issue.
Incredible, and yeah. Uh, any final
Alright,
comments,
that's
Comrade
it.
Mike?
I mean, what's it? I'd say that when it comes to looking at things like this, people need to stop jumping to the conclusion every time there's nationalism in the Middle East or in Africa that it's somewhat bad, or because it doesn't conform to your liberal niceties, and maybe should consider looking more into the history of people like Nasser, and then obviously Gaddafi and other things like that. And we were going to eventually expand deeper into Gaddafi and into the other contradictions of Middle East and Africa. But, absolute respect to, well, those who will eventually watch it, because no one's watching right now. But sound funny when those people who are watching it. Fucking A. All good stuff. Enjoy. And you'll have to introduce me to that Irish geezer you're on about. But yeah, nah, yeah, nah, yeah. Let's fucking